Welcome back to Zero to X. With me, Ruby Nguyen, I'm your host. On Zero to X, we discuss stories behind the scenes of company building being told by entrepreneurs with extraordinary grit and brilliance. And this podcast is made with love from entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. And today, I'm super excited to have my guest, Bryan Pham, on the series. And Bryan is a CEO and founder at Asian Hustle Network. And Asian Hustle Network is the largest Asian entrepreneurial community around the world with 250,000 members from 100 plus countries. On top of that, Bryan is also an investor with a robust portfolio of rising startups. Personally, I admire Bryan greatly for his grit and his superpower in hustling. Welcome, Bryan. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be in the show today.
Thank you. First, I would love to learn more about your company and about who you are as an entrepreneur. Tell us a little bit about how and why you started this Asian Hustle Network.
Yes, so Asian Hustle Network started almost 5 years ago in 2019, but the idea behind it started in 2018. So 2018, we realized at that time there wasn't a lot or any Asian community out there that supports the entrepreneurial and creative community. And the reason why we noticed this is because back then I used to attend a lot of conferences and I saw the same problem over and over, especially in the US. There wasn't a lot of representation on stage, right? I didn't see people that looked like me. I didn't see people that sound like me. I didn't see people creating great podcasts like the one we're on right now to share stories about people with similar experiences. And with the gap in the market, I wanted to, at first, I did not think I was going to be the one that was going to do it. Right? I was, in fact, looking online for other communities because I wanted to join them. I never thought to myself, I'm going to create Asian Hustle Network at that point. And what really pushed me through was when I was traveling during that time period, and I ended up going to Tokyo, Japan. So I went to Meiji Shrine, and to my surprise, I saw how captivating people were around reading tablets of other people's stories at the shrine. And I found myself captivated by that story too. Like I was there for like 2-3 hours reading stories from strangers around the world.
I love that. I do that when I'm in Japan too.
Yeah. I just felt so inspired. And I knew that the basis of building behind a strong community is storytelling, right? Giving your members, giving your community an opportunity to create a voice for themselves. So I had this idea and I went online and I couldn't find anything that I wanted apart. Like I couldn't find anything that had this type of community I wanted. And the funny thing was I actually posted inside a different community this idea behind Asian Hustle Network, and they rejected my post and they never approved my post. And I was really taken back by that, but instead of being discouraged, I decided to be, you know what, I want to build this community that I envision that can benefit not just for me, but for other people around me and future generations.
Oh, that's a great story. So being rejected in that online community is actually a good thing.
Yeah. Had I not been rejected, none of this would ever start.
Maybe it will be a different way. Or maybe it's still going to be the same because of the drive that you have behind it.
Yeah.
So what is your business model with Asian Hustle Network? And how do you fund it?
That's a good question. So essentially, we work as an ad company. So we become a gateway for corporations to reach the Asian audience. Right, we work with a lot of big brands, and we incorporate their ads throughout our events, throughout our newsletter, our social media campaigns. That's also one thing. We also tap into big multicultural contracts from corporations to help to find more people for their programming. Right. For example, we've been working with this other company that created a minority-focused entrepreneurial program that needed more signups. But they didn't know how to reach like the Asian audience. They reached out to us, and we signed contracts with them. That's the main two ways that we generate revenue. We have other avenues as well. We have our conference, we have our podcast and so on. But the main source is advertisements and our multicultural contracts.
I see. You have 250,000 members. Do you charge them a subscription or membership fee?
I do not.
And why?
So you have to understand your demographic really well. And we realized that the Asian community doesn't like to pay for anything.
This is a stereotype, but okay.
It's not a stereotype.
But it's also true.
But being a part of the Asian community, we found it to be true. So whenever this happens, we're like, okay, we're gonna go for size, right? We'll still offer all the benefits that we can to the community, but then we need to find a way to monetize too. And unfortunately, there's one or two things to think about this. Either your community becomes your product, meaning they pay for a membership, or they are the product. Or we have a gateway for other corporations to reach our audience. So there's one or two ways of thinking about it.
That's great. So you go with the advertising model. That means that you have to increase the size of the community to a critical mass to attract advertiser. How did you solve that problem? It's going to be like a cold start problem, right?
Yeah, so there's two ways to sell, right? One is through hard metrics of your own size. And the second one is the quality of your audience, which is also important to companies. So let's say, for example, if we have a smaller community that's very curated, like everyone in our community, for example, I'm giving you an example here. Everyone there is has a net worth of over $10 million USD, right? Of course, advertisers will want to target that niche because even though they're smaller, the impact is greater. And the way that we use position as well, it's like, hey, we also have like 20 creators that collectively have millions of followers as our community. We can help you reach them as well. So there's two ways to market it. But nowadays, since we've grown to a critical mass that's sustainable, we don't have to go the first route, but it took a lot of creative ways to sell what we're trying to do.
That is brilliant. So you go for two high quality, one group is very high quality, with a net worth of $10 million and above. That's considered high net worth individual. And then the second group are the one with a lot of social media influence. So you combine the both, just you have strength on both sides.
Exactly.
That's amazing. That's a brilliant way to solve the problem. Let's talk a little bit about funding. How did you fund the company? Did you put your own money in? Did you raise funding from external investors?
Fortunately, I did not put my own money into building this. We were, I would say, the first 4 months bootstrapped. So we were able to generate like a small amount of revenue to keep ourselves going. But we realized at one point that we have bigger ambitions, that we want to go out there and take on the world and expand over to Australia, Canada, and soon Asia. Currently, we're obviously in Vietnam right now, that we need to raise some funding. We went around pitching a lot of people at the very beginning, but no one really understood what we're trying to build, right? Because unlike most traditional companies, we're building an ecosystem, right? If we knew that we needed investors that are patient with what we're trying to do.
Right, yeah.
So at first, we did approach a lot of venture capitalists. They didn't understand it. We understand they don't understand it. But then there's one thing that kept reoccurring was how fast can you like scale? How fast can you like produce like an income return?
Yeah.
At that point, we felt like this wasn't going to be the good route for us because we needed more time, right? Because we knew what we had was special, but needed a lot of time for it to grow into the critical mass and impact that we always imagined to be.
Yes, yeah.
But instead, we picked up a bunch of smaller checks that are very strategic angels that have helped us grow to many different countries, like we envisioned, right? We picked up people with strong expertise in merger and acquisitions. We picked up people with strong expertise in event management, right? We picked up people that have served on the board of like top entertainment companies like Netflix and Hulu, right? This actually opens more doors for us because we rely on them as an extension of our connections.
Yeah. They don't just bring in money, but they bring in so much business value.
Business value and insight.
Yeah. So looking back, would you say that you wouldn't go to the venture capital route if you knew what you knew today?
No, definitely not.
Why?
I think it's a blessing in disguise. At the time, it sucked to be rejected from venture capital first nonstop. And that's a common story you hear among founders.
Yes.
Right? Rejections is part of the process.
Oh, by the way, you were also in venture capital before, right?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
So I kind of had an idea of how crazy.
You understand how it worked from the inside?
Yes.
And still couldn't really convince them.
Yeah. It was difficult, but then knowing what I know now, especially as I'm going into my 5th year of running this company, it's a blessing in disguise. It really is.
Why is it a blessing?
This is just my personal opinion. There's nothing else about it. I feel like when you're under pressure to raise money on a constant basis, and that you have no revenue to sustain your growth, and that the only way to continue growing is to raise more money and giving up more equity and bringing in more opinions into your company, you're not going to make the best business decision, right? And knowing what I know now, not every investor has the best intention for your company. You have to be very selective and very smart about who you bring on board.
Yeah, inherently, there's already a conflict of interest between founders and investors.
Yes.
Especially VC investors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The expectation is very different than what you would decide in a lot of scenario.
Yes.
Yeah. So growing fast, for example, is to grow fast, you have to have a period of experiment and not knowing how to grow and try different things and fail. And there's some period of time where you go slow, but actually that slow speed build up the momentum in the future. But it's from the outside or from the investor point of view, it's just like no progress.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there's two ways to think about venture capital. I feel like if you have a product that already works, and all you need is to pour more oil on it, which is money, to make the same. So you found a secret sauce to make your product work. That's when you should go out there and raise venture capital, because now you have a proven model that works. I think the worst thing you can do is raise VC money when you don't have a model that works. And that was us like 5 years ago. We did not have a model that worked. We would have died up to this point already.
I see. Yeah. And even when you have a product market fit, there's something that is already working. VC money also come with huge expectation of high speed growth. And it might not be something that you would be able to crack or deliver. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
There's a lot of expectations, because I think there's two sides of the story. I think venture capitalists are also under pressure.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they're not just they're getting pressure from their LPs. Right? The LPs is a lot of times like, what's going on with my money? I want my money back.
They want to see the return.
Yeah, your performance matters, because you can't raise the next round of funding if your fund does bad, right?
Yeah.
And you get pressure, you're going to pressure the founders.
So talking about cracking the code of the market, how do you define product market fit for your business?
That's a really good question. I think for us, product market fit is when we can comfortably sustain our revenue growth, right? And we tend to look for an increase of 3 to 8% per year. I know that's not as fast as some venture-backed companies, but to us, that works, right? And knowing that our community is not stagnant, the membership is still growing, our revenue is still growing, our headcount is still growing. That, to me, is our product market fit. And it's a very untraditional way of defining it, because most product market fit is like a scale that goes like this. Like we want to take the gradual process, because we know that it's just a matter of time before we continue growing our influence around the world.
I see. You say that that's untraditional. I think it's untraditional in the VC-backed model, but it's very traditional in the non-VC backed model.
Exactly.
Growing 80% a year is amazing. It's not small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's our goal.
Yeah.
Grow 8% a year, and we have in the last 3 years.
So Bryan, tell me a little bit more about how you build and grow your team.
A lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
I think at the very beginning, like there was a lot of enthusiasm in what we wanted to build, but then you realize quickly that if you yourself are not continuously growing as a leader, you kind of just stop there, and your company just stops growing, because your company will never grow faster than its leader.
Yeah.
Right? You are the reason why your company grows big. I did have a lot of problems at the very beginning sustaining talent on my team. Like the most talented people kept leaving because they weren't clear about what we're trying to build. And that hurt. I went to a period where I was questioning everything. Like, is this worth it? Am I the right leader? Should I step aside? But then at the very end of the day, like, no one cares about what you're building as much as you do, right? No one sees that vision as much as you do. So you have to find it within yourself to like continue moving forward. And I think the funny thing is like the universe is like always there to help you when you're ready for it. Because just when you're about to give up, like someone that turns around the entire organization like reaches out to you. You're like, hey, I love what you're doing. Can I be involved? And then this person changes your entire perspective. right? So I think that's a law of attraction as well. As long as you keep focusing on what you're doing, you're going to keep bringing the right people around you to do great things.
Mm-hmm. And when you have a lot of issues with hiring and retaining talents, what is the learning that you gather for yourself? How did you learn to become a better leader and manager and, being a boss, still being effective as a boss, right?
Yeah. So currently we have 41 employees. I think that's a reasonable size. I don't want it to get any bigger, maybe 50 at most. But I think the most ironic thing was before I had trouble letting go of my power. Like, you don't know how to do it this way, let me help you. And I was very hands-on, right? So I realized the one style that changed, that really helped me out a lot, was bringing in good talent and trusting them to deliver without much intervention on like the meticulous level, like the modular level, but creating a clear vision for them to follow and a clear scope for them to follow. Talented people just blow you away, right? So the ironic thing is like the less work you do as like the hands-on person and the more visionary work you do, it's more impactful for your business overall.
Mm-hmm. And when did you learn that switch? At what stage? How many people were on the team? Yeah.
So truth be told, there was a point a year and a half ago where I had to fire a lot of people on my team, and a lot of it is my fault. It's not their fault, because I wasn't sure about what kind of culture I wanted to bring in. I just needed help, right? So I wasn't very intentional with the compatibility fit of the team. So I had to fire a lot of people and then take some time off to like think about, man, am I really that bad at hiring people? Like, retaining people? So I had to take a step back and I had to understand, okay, what does my business need right now? What are my top priorities? And when I was able to clearly define the role and expectation, I was now able to scale the team correctly, because it just became really obvious what we needed, right? If we're looking at the numbers and KPIs, it's like, okay, statistically, we're doing a lot over here, and we're growing a lot over here, to doing more resources over there. Why are we creating new projects that get in the way, right? Just double down on whatever works and innovate from there.
That sounds like a hard time, but it's also a good learning for you as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think most entrepreneurs go through the same issues. It's never an easy process. And when I talk to people that are much higher level than me, I feel like the pain never goes away. It feels like it's worse. It's just like, oh no. Because I do have a few mentors that end up raising like $200-300 million for the company. And they took the company IPO public. And then their life seems miserable. I was like, oh, it looks like it's worse.
Oh, damn. Yeah. As an entrepreneur, when we first get started, we always dream about taking the company, go IPO, right?
Yeah. Now I know it's like one of the worst things you can do.
Talking about that, do you still have that dream?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably at the tail end of my career with that company if I take it public.
I see.
Because once you take it public, you have little say to how they run the company. Because when I was a public company, there's a lot more investors, a lot more regulations. But I think the story behind going IPO is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right. I keep hearing my friends and mentors that tell me about, when I IPO, I went to the New York Stock Exchange. And there was this
so romantic
back door that you walk in. Everybody you walk up the staircase and everybody signs it. And you see Steve Jobs or all these big, cool people that you admire sign the wall as they go to IPO, and you get on stage and you realize that none of it feels real because they tell you when to cheers, they tell you when to so you say, yeah, we IPO. Was you're just standing up there for 10 minutes. Yeah. And not that I would know, but I do hear enough stories that I'm just like, you know what? It sounds corny, but I want to experience it once, even though it's a company suicide.
That is so funny. That sounds like a girl dreaming about her wedding.
Yeah, it's probably my wedding.
Yeah, that's kind of an entrepreneurial wedding. So you're building your team and your operation all around the world.
That's correct.
And I see you flying around Every day.
Every day. I'm not flying around today.
I'm kidding. Every week or every few weeks. How do you manage your life and your health and your just personal matters?
Yeah. It is difficult.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people romanticize being able to travel the world until they do it. And then you realize that traveling a lot, especially when you're not on vacation, is tiresome. It takes a toll on your physical body, your mental health if you're not careful, right? But then you always have to play out the positives. I think that as human beings, we always tend to focus on the negative things. I'm so tired. I don't want to do this. I don't want to meet people. But I think by switching your mindset to be like, this is a privilege, right? Not a lot of people get to do this. I get have control over my own life. I'm very happy, right? And just changing the narrative in your head is super important. But how do I keep everything in place? I think just sticking to a routine is important. I know most people say that, oh, I need to be settled in order to create a routine. But you create a routine that you can use to travel the world. It's important. For me, it's always waking up with appreciation, right? Being grateful. Reading is really important for my mental health, right? Writing is also really important because the way that I write, there's two ways I write. The first part of my journal is very intentional. How am I feeling? What am I grateful for? What are my goals, right? It's just very simple, like 5 lines. And then the rest, I let myself free flow, right? But then I free flow with structure. I ask myself, what am I feeling? I'm feeling anxious. Why am I feeling anxious, right? And I just free flow. Like I let my subconscious mind tell me what's wrong with me, right? And then if I keep writing it, now I can kind of be more aware that I'm doing that, right? And I feel like that kind of small routine, no matter where I go, keeps me in check. It keeps everything more balanced. Because I do get a lot of random thoughts whenever I'm on an airplane, whenever I see different things that I'm just like, want to write this down. And the other thing is physical health, right? I exercise a lot. Doesn't matter where I am. If I can get a run in, if I can go to a quick gym session, I take advantage of all those things to keep myself structured no matter where I am in the world.
That's awesome. There's 2 things that you mentioned that I would love to re-emphasize for the audience. One is that you mentioned that all this hardship is actually, it feels hard a lot sometimes, but it's actually a privilege to be able to have all this opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Recently, I've started to look at all the hardship that I have or challenges I have from that lens as well. And then at one point, I realized that all this suffering is actually a privilege. And there's so much beauty in it because it builds your character and your perspective
Not just
about the world. Yeah.
It's a choice.
Yes.
We choose this pain.
Yeah.
No one else is forcing us to do this.
Yes.
We chose this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We chose this. It comes with the deal.
It comes with a lot of pain.
It's a part of the deal. Yeah. There's no easy success. There's no easy IPO.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second thing you talked about earlier was the practice of having a structure, and especially structure in writing is something that I also practice a lot. I write every day, obsessively.
Same here.
Yeah.
I can't skip a day.
Yeah. Early in the day when having the first coffee to sometimes during lunch, sometimes dinner, just sometimes in the bathroom break.
Yeah.
And before going to bed.
Wow.
And I think not every day like that.
I was like, it's like
not every day like that. But like I find moments like that to write down thoughts and ideas and how I feel and my reflection about it. And I think it's one of the practice that helped me manage my mental health the most. Yeah.
Mental health is important, completely underrated.
Yeah.
But then it's kind of disappointing still because everyone knows that founders' depression is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And still today, whenever I look online for resources, it's still very limited.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I feel like there's still not enough people talking about how much mental health issues you get being an entrepreneur.
Yes. Yeah, there are days that it feels like the world's crushing.
Yeah.
And you feel depressed and lonely and no one understands you and you doubt yourself, like, am I built for this?
Yes.
Right?
Very, very normal.
Yeah. How often do you encounter those kind of moments?
Pretty often, actually.
Like how often?
I'd be lying if I said that it's not at least 3 times a week.
I'm not surprised when you say that. Yeah.
It's just a matter of how you deal with your problem, right? Because I hate how like just people are wired. Like we're just wired to like look for problems. You know, like you'll be having a great day, and suddenly a thought will occur in your head, and it just ruins your day. You know, so I'm fully aware of how powerful narratives and the story that we tell ourselves internally are so important, right? So I think for me, when I rewire the way I think and get out of my depression, it's like there's one thing I consistently write in my journal. There's a solution to every problem, right? And that life is under my control and I have full control over it. That's 2 things that I think about, right? Whenever I run into hardships.
Right. Do you think about getting a therapist, taking medicines, and...
I'm not really big on medicine, but definitely having a therapist or having like a founders therapy session or just bringing founders together with dinners and talking about our hardships are extremely important.
Yes, it is so important to have founders sharing stories because when it's tough, we feel like we're alone in this. But then we look out in our peer group, it's like everyone is having the same shit, just in different shades, right? Yeah. This is also why I do this podcast, because I want to bring real stories of real entrepreneurs to people, not just the PR or the media version, but real story being told by you.
Yeah. The media only shows the best parts. Being rich, buying this car.
Yeah, raising this much money, that sort of things.
Chào những khán giả của Zero to X. Mình muốn dành một chút thời gian để cảm ơn Workflow, nhà tài trợ của tập podcast ngày hôm nay. Đội ngũ của mình tại Curious cũng đang sử dụng không gian tại Workflow để làm việc hybrid. Cả đội rất yêu thích kiến trúc hiện đại, đồ ăn ngon và những ly cà phê đầy tính sáng tạo ở đây. Điều tuyệt vời nhất là bạn có thể đăng ký sử dụng không gian linh hoạt với chi phí rất là kinh tế. Nếu bạn đang tìm kiếm một không gian làm việc hybrid cho bản thân hoặc cho đội ngũ nhỏ của mình tại thành phố Hồ Chí Minh thì hãy thử Workflow nhé.
Hey, những người bạn doanh nhân của Zero to X, nếu bạn thích chương trình này thì tại sao không mua tặng tụi mình một ly cà phê? Hãy nhấn vào link ở trong description nhé. What is the hardest part about building this company for you?
Oh man, I think like I said before, we're not really building like a traditional company. We're building an ecosystem that has multiple pillars, right? It's like, how do you get your supporters involved in your business without violating any labor laws? That was extremely difficult for me to think about. How do I continue to get my community engaged and sell our product, right? And position ourselves to secure more ad revenue, right? That was extremely difficult. And the last thing was like continuously clarifying our vision to the point where when people look at Asian Hustle Network or AHN, they know exactly what we're doing, right? And when you look at us, we are a community of entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs. And this is how we provide value, right? And we provide, for me, the way I learned how to sell is that you want to sell whenever you're not intentionally selling.
Yeah, that's the best selling.
Right? Because you're still making revenue, but then you're still helping your clients, your customers, your community out a lot. And that's, to me, is the best way. And that's how we position ourselves.
See. So, it's a tough journey to build your business. It's tough on your mental health, your physical health as well. What carry you on? What is the drive behind the drive?
Yeah, I ask myself this question a lot as well. I think what drives me is a sense of responsibility in some ways. How I want to see this through. I want to see what this will become in 10 years, 15 years, because I know for a fact that this is going to not only benefit us right now, but benefit our future kids, right? When they need help looking for funding or looking for community or looking for events, right? Or looking for support, this is going to be there for them. And earlier I mentioned the ecosystem that I'm building, right? I want to create a place where everyone feels like they belong somewhere in the ecosystem and that they don't feel like an outsider. And to me, I feel like that is solving one of the problems that I feel personally. Because growing up, I always felt like I was an outsider to a lot of different things. The way I thought, the way I acted was very different from a normal traditional person. But I've come to realize that as I got older, everyone is unique in their own ways. And that sometimes you just need to find the right people and the right groups to accept you, to bring out the most talented side of you.
That's a huge vision, and definitely it comes with some sacrifice. And so what do you think is the biggest sacrifice that you've made to commit to this vision?
Yes, I feel it a lot every day. I probably see my parents like once a year at this point, or if I'm lucky, twice a year. I don't see my friends that often. I feel like my personal life has been delayed quite a bit. So,
what do you mean by your personal life has been delayed?
It's just in terms of like when I see myself starting a family, because I feel like I don't want to do my family a disservice, and that I need to finish at least a strong milestone before I can think about moving on to a different part. It was hard because, obviously thought here in Vietnam is a big deal. I'm still away from my family. I'm usually in Australia or different parts of Asia at the time, worrying about the next project. Because unfortunately for me, thought is also a big deal in the U.S. It's where all our events happen. It's where all the sponsorship happens.
Yeah. I see your events happening every week in so many different places.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's probably been the biggest sacrifice, is my family. Like, I feel like I am accomplishing what I want to accomplish and be a good entrepreneur, but I feel like my parents are getting older and it's hard for me to see them.
I see. Do you feel this sacrifice worth it?
I want to say yes, because I wouldn't have had it any other way. I just had to get to where I want to get to, and then re-switch my priorities to focus on things that matter to me now.
Would you say that you're clear about where you would get to for you to start deprioritize, or not start deprioritize, but put more priority to personal life? Because I feel like being an entrepreneur, there's always the next milestone that is bigger and harder. Right? It never ends. When will we know that it's enough, or it's the place to slow down and start spending time on other things?
That's a very difficult question that today you probably talk to a lot of people, they still struggle with that question. It just depends on how you're wired, right? Some people never stop.
Yeah.
And some people realize this is not, I need to change my priority. I think the way you realize it, or for me, at least how I realize it, is if I'm no longer waking up with a lot of enthusiasm and passion, it's time to pass the baton to someone who is and guide them along the way.
But what if you always wake up with enthusiasm? Would you ever prioritize your personal life?
Then you're screwed.
Oh, damn.
Just kidding.
Hashtag reality. Yeah, I've talked to so many entrepreneurs, amazing entrepreneurs on this podcast. Some of them have built unicorns and have done IPOs, and in the end, it's still the drive of achievement that make them feel the most satisfied.
Curiosity, achievement, recognition.
Yeah.
Those are honestly a curse,
It's a curse, yes. It's a blessing, it's a curse at the same time. Yeah.
It is. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
I see. That's a tough part. You feel pain about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm the type that would slow down for a bit to worry about other things, but go back in the grind whenever my time frees up again. And that's an unfortunate side of my personality.
I also see it's quite beautiful. Yeah. That you have that drive, and you're aware of that drive, and you're willing to work extremely hard and sacrifice things to see that vision coming true. Yeah.
I think I remember a quote saying, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. I want to add more to that quote. If you do what you love, then you keep working all the time.
That is so true. Yeah, you're always working. Yeah. But it's also, I find that life beautiful too, because every day there's something inspiring you deeply. Or there's some people that do something, maybe people on your team or in your community that do something or say something that just touch you. Right.
They do. Like, people do matter. the people you surround yourself matters a lot, right? And they could greatly affect your mentality and how you approach certain problems. So definitely be aware and selective who you keep close around you.
Yeah. I've faced similar challenge being an entrepreneur where I do have to sacrifice quite a lot of things, but I choose to build the team of people around me that feels, it's a cliche to say it feels like family because we don't behave like family, but it has a feeling of home when you work with them.
Yes, that's a good way of saying it. Right.
So that just make work so much more meaningful.
Yeah.
On my podcast, I usually ask my guests this question, and most people like it or dislike it, but they have a love-hate relationship for it.
Yeah.
I always ask about the biggest failure on the entrepreneurial journey, like something that is painful, that left a scar, that changed you fundamentally as an entrepreneur. I'm sure you have a story like that. Yeah.
I think early on in my entrepreneurial journey, I have grown very attached to everyone that worked with me because I always felt incredibly grateful that they're on this journey with me, helping me build this vision that I want to build. So I've grown really, really attached to people. I learned that you shouldn't do that, right? And that you should set boundaries for yourself. Because when someone leaves the team, I always felt incredibly hurt, or I always felt like it was my fault, or I wasn't a good leader, right? And I wouldn't say that's my biggest failure. Luckily, it's not super anything financial. But I guess that's like the biggest setback I had was it was hard for me to be seeing, building, finding great talent for the company because I couldn't let go of the old talent. Yeah, that was probably the most fundamentally changing part of being an entrepreneur for me. Is that honestly, that's cold reality. It's people come and go, and that everyone can be replaced.
Well, you mentioned that you grow attached to people, but then you also have to learn to let people go. I think that's a very delicate balance.
Yeah.
But actually that makes you a great leader because you have a certain, you don't treat people as just a part of the machine.
Yeah.
Right.
Most companies do.
But then when you treat people well, you work with them, they come to join your company because they believe in you and your vision, and they see the value of their work here with you. And so there's a lot of deep connection. It's not just a transaction.
Yeah.
And so that part will make your work feel meaningful, but at the same time, when it doesn't work, you have to let that go. And every time you let someone go, it's feel like you're losing a part of your
identity,
memory, and identity, and family. I think that's one of the experiences that changed a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Anything else that you would consider a big failure?
I think
or big mistake that you've made?
At the time, they all felt really big. When you first time experienced anything bad, any sort of controversies or scandals or rumors, I always felt like a big deal at the time. Your first lawsuit feels like a big deal.
Did you have a lawsuit?
You're running a business is inevitable. People try to take advantage of your business and so on. But over time, as you continue to grow in your journey, you're like, oh, it's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. Why am I stressing about this? Don't even give it any mind, because you're always focused on the next thing. Right? You're always focused on creating a bigger, better impact with your business.
Mm-hmm. So looking back, is there anything that you did that you wish you would have done differently?
I think everything I've done led me down to this point. So I don't think so. I think I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out.
That's great. Everything that you've done made you the person who you are today. And even if during that period of time it was in...
I realized that every experience, no matter good or bad, will benefit you down the line.
Yeah.
Every mistake you make is going to make you a better person. Every win's not so much. You learn from it. But then you realize that even if you repeat the same script of success that helped you before, or you follow one else's script of success does leave clues, but it doesn't leave a path. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So it leaves clues, so you take it and you readjust it to where you are in your situation to succeed. But there's no clear path to success unless you walk your own path.
How did you realize this? Because for young entrepreneurs, it's so easy to get pressure from the peers, from other people's success, and also from your own mentors, right?
Yeah.
If they are very successful people, you kind of have a tendency wanting to follow similar path.
Yeah.
Right. And so how did you come to realize that you have to create your own path? And it's not just a realization that is intellectualized, right? It's in your gut as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have the fortunate opportunity to have mentors who have started multiple successful companies. But usually the next few companies are always in the shadow of the major success they had. Even though they follow the same playbook, they're the same founder, they can't repeat and duplicate the success they had with the other company. So to me, it takes a tremendous amount of luck, timing, opportunity, right, for you to capture a market at that time. It's extremely difficult. So, yeah, I think...
luck is such a big factor. Do you see you're very lucky in your business?
Very lucky.
You're very lucky?
Yeah, I would say like, I would have got to where I am if it weren't for a stroke of luck along the way.
And what do you see is the factor that give you that luck element?
I think the more mentally ready you are and the more prepared you are, the luckier you get. Yeah.
Do you also see the timing of history? For example, there's certainly a lot of unheard voices among the Asian communities, especially in the West, where there's racism and that kind of matters, right?
Yeah.
You think that part of history is a part of your luck?
Unfortunately, yes. We started 4 months before the global pandemic. And when the global pandemic happened, our community exploded.
Yeah, there was a lot of Asian hate.
Yeah, and we were at the forefront of it. And then we took a lot of action to alleviate some of the burden in our community.
Let's talk about the Asian entrepreneurial community that you have around the world.
Yeah.
I'm sure you see a lot of patterns that is similar in different countries or regions. But there's also differences, right? So where are the similarities and where are the differences between America and Asia and Australia and other parts of the world?
I think it's funny. It's a good question to ask. Whenever I meet an American entrepreneur, we think we're the best.
Okay.
We assume we're the best.
Good for confidence.
Very, very confident people. Whenever I meet an entrepreneur in Asia or Australia and so on, there's less confidence. I'm like, oh, we're like America's little brother, or we're behind the U.S., or there's no way we're going to capture the U.S. entrepreneur. But here's where the similarity is. You guys are equally talented. There's no difference in talent, all right? The only difference is the mentality that I can do it. That's the only difference. Yeah.
So Asian entrepreneurs in America think that they're the best, and
I would say just not Asians. I would say it's entrepreneurs in America in general.
So that's America in general. Yeah. People are very
confident. There's like a blind faith that everything's going to work out. And sometimes when you believe things so hard that it's going to work out, you bend reality around you to make it a reality.
Yeah. So it's a delusion that is actually helpful. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's self-fulfilling prophecy, yes.
Yeah.
What do they call it? What do kids call it nowadays? Delulu until it's real.
What is that?
I don't know. I saw a slang on like TikTok where it's like you're delusional.
I see.
Until it becomes real.
Yeah, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Is that so interesting? I also see this some of the differences when I'm in America, when I hang out with other Asian entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And
like blind confidence. I love.
I remember I was at an event hosted by a VC firm, and they were like, "We Asian American or Asian entrepreneurs are the best asset class," and everyone was like, "Yes." But I love the enthusiasm. Yeah.
You need it because you're your best cheerleader during the hard journey that you're facing.
So you're in Vietnam a lot, and your parents were Vietnamese, or
yes, they're Vietnamese.
How did you migrate? How did your family migrate to America?
Yeah, so my parents were a part of the refugees group that escaped in 1985. So originally they were in the Philippines for a few years, and at that time it was pretty funny. My mom wanted to go to Australia, My dad wanted to go to the U.S.
Oh, okay.
because my dad was
That's like two different parts of the world.
my mom was like, my uncle is in Australia. I want to go to Australia. It's close by to home. I can get back to Asia easier. My dad's like, no, like we need to go to America. That's where the opportunity's at. So I'm not sure how the story unfolded, but long story short, I think like my parents flipped a coin.
Oh, wow.
Heads are going to the U.S. until they're going to Australia.
At least they have the choice to go.
At least that's how I became an American, because it was heads.
Well, what a lovely story. Great cocktail story. And so you spent a lot of time in Vietnam. What are you trying to do here in the country?
Yeah.
From your perspective, what are the opportunities that are so attractive to you that you are spending time here? Yeah.
I think Vietnam is obviously a young, vibrant, talented country, right? I think looking around the innovation, it's amazing like how open ears people are here to take in new ideas. That's what I love most about Vietnam. But I also feel like the ecosystem here is very new and it's not quite built out yet. So I always felt that if I can bring whatever I learned from the Western side, the US side, over to Vietnam, Vietnam would totally blow up in the next 5 to 10 years, right? I don't think things happen overnight. I don't think things happen over 1 year. But I think it's people constantly pollinating new approaches and ideas to the country is what is going to cause a rapid innovation that's going to happen. Right, that's one element. Obviously, there's a lot of elements, right? How's the economy doing? How's the government doing? And so on. Those are all factors.
But those are macro factors that you can't really do much about.
You can't do much about that. I think the opportunity here is if you think outside the box and not inside the box, things work out a lot better for you, right? You come out here and you think differently and you approach differently. That's where opportunities are at. And the people here are very receptive of that, right? Which is what I love about Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. Do you hire employees from Vietnam?
Of course.
What are the type of talents that you hire the most here and why?
Yeah. I hire a lot of technical talent here. I feel like engineers here are one of the best in the world, right? I hire a lot of graphic designers, video editors, right? I would say it's a little bit harder on the sales side, because like sales culture in the U.S. is so different from Vietnam culture, right? So we keep most of our sales in like on the U.S. side, but we keep most of our talent, technical talent, project managers in the Vietnam side.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes a lot of sense. Technical talents here are amazing. There's 1 million engineers, software engineers in Vietnam, and the cost is just a fraction of engineers in the U.S.
Yeah, it's not just the cost that is attractive to me. It's being able to know that whoever works for us would now have the capability to become an entrepreneur themselves, right? Because of how transparent we are in the organization.
Is there any opportunities that you see in Vietnam that you want to capture, but you just don't have the capacity to do it?
Yes. I would love to do like a food and beverage concept here. I feel like the foodie scene is quite interesting and quite massive. But in terms of resources and timing, I just don't have the timing for it.
I see. And you mentioned earlier that the ecosystem is still very young, right?
Yes.
There's still a lot of challenges to its growth. What are the key challenges that you see?
It's not just a Vietnam thing. It is, I would say, Southeast Asia and Singapore as well are still trying to solve this problem, right? Because I think most of the biggest challenge that I see here from a more technical standpoint is that there's still not enough venture funds coming into Vietnam, right? Which means that if a company reaches critical mass, they need extra money to continue growing. They can no longer tap into your venture capital firms who are based in Vietnam. They had to go overseas to find extra funding. The second thing is there's also the danger of growing too big here. Because if you get to a critical size and you can't raise more money, right, you have to seek out a buyer. But there's not enough exits, or I don't think there's any exits at all yet in Vietnam. Yeah, that will be able to buy these companies, right? So the ecosystem works whenever founders exit and they get back, and they purchase companies, and they get back, purchase companies. That's how the knowledge and money gets passed around, and that's how ecosystems grow.
Yeah. What do you think about what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who build in Vietnam but want to sell to the US or go global?
Yeah, I would say focus on your target market first and dominate super hard. All right, you want everyone to know about your product in that particular niche, to be like, when they think about that niche or that problem, you're the first person that comes up. When you're able to monopolize your market that hard, now it's time to expand overseas, right? But then you have to be open that every country has different approaches and go-to-market strategy. But I think just knowing that you'd be financially okay because you already took over your market and expanding to a new market, you have to think about it too. Is the U.S. market appropriate for your product, right? Is the culture too different? Are they receptive of it? That's also all the questions you ask yourself. Because I think it's not just the U.S. market. If you expand to any market without prior research, you're going to do really badly in there.
Brian, I just want to touch a little bit more about your investor background.
Yeah, ask me.
Why do you invest? Who do you invest in? And what do you how do people reach you as an investor?
Yes.
Yeah.
So originally I invested more as to help out my friends. All right. I invest mainly to deals where I knew the founder really well, or I felt like they had something going, and I felt like I don't just provide money, but connections and knowledge and input to help them grow even bigger. Right. That's how I kind of got started, because it sense for me to give back. And then we got into more serious deals. We started doing SPVs, right? Leveraging the size of our communities, our accredited investors to go into a handful of deals. And luckily, those deals did really well. And that gave us a lot of confidence that we wanted to do something more on a larger scale and focus on Asian entrepreneurs. So we ended up raising a small venture fund. We're also on track to raise our next pretty decent sized fund. Closer to, the 25 to 35, $50 million range, as we're hopefully going to debut that fund pretty soon. But the way people reach out to us is obviously AsianHustleNetwork.com, click on AHN Ventures in the corner, and then reach out to us to fill out the founders form.
Mm-hmm. And what are your theses? What are the key theses that you focus on in your investment?
Yeah. So I would say from a very personal standpoint, they tend to be all over the place, which I didn't like. It's hard for me to provide value if I didn't really know the industry really well. But nowadays, it's very curated. It's like we only invest in tech companies, right? We only invest in companies that have at least one Asian founder as a part of the founding team or board or whatever. And then the other thing is like we have to curate. We look at the list of LPs that we raised for that particular fund, and look through their domain expertise. That way we know for a fact that every company that we invest into, we can get them to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And are you also managing these funds beside your key business with Asian Hustle Network?
So it's a part of Asian Hustle Network ecosystem, as I mentioned earlier. I'm not the sole person. There is a team of 4.
I see. Do you make the investment decisions yourself, or
I give them input, but then I rely on the super smart people on my team to do that.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Ryan, it's been such a great conversation with you today. Thank you so much for being so open and sometimes even vulnerable about your stories.
Yeah.
I learned a lot during this conversation. And to end this podcast today, I just have a few fun questions for you. Sure. It's been quite serious questions, but now it's a fun one. What do you think is the most important skill of an entrepreneur?
I want to say something kind of funny, but also kind of inappropriate. To be so relentlessly dumb that I just don't know when to quit.
Sounds about right. Yes, yeah. I think it takes a level of silliness to have that stubbornness.
Yeah.
I think that's great. That's one of the best answers I've ever heard. And what is the dark side of entrepreneurship?
The dark side, don't believe everything you see in the media about what's great about entrepreneurship. It's not for everybody, and you have to have a certain character trait that
like
wants
what?
more pain and wants more innovation in order to like become an entrepreneur.
Yeah. That wants more pain and can tolerate a lot of pain, right?
Exactly, pain tolerance.
So, beside those characters, who are the ones who are well built to be an entrepreneur and who are not?
I think that's a hard question to say. There's no one size fit all with entrepreneurship, but I would say the ones who end up becoming really good entrepreneurs are the ones that never know when to stop and are not afraid to ask for things or ask questions, and they don't let anything hold them back. Like they have like no mental blockage, and they continuously run their walls day in and day out. Are the ones that take their companies to the moon.
Mm-hmm. And how do you constantly learn and grow as an entrepreneur?
You learn every day.
Yeah.
You learn to reading, to talking, to podcasting, to networking.
What's your favorite way of learning? Or there's no one?
My favorite way of learning to be an entrepreneur, just do it. Just do it.
Okay.
Keep building.
Yeah.
You know, that's the best way to learn.
Also sounds about right. And last but not least, if you have just one message to entrepreneurs out there, and I can put it on all the billboards around the world, what would that be?
Keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward?
There's always going to be a better day tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And no matter how awesome or terrible your day is today, as long as you keep moving forward with a good mindset, you're going to create more opportunities for yourself. And the best thing that I learned about entrepreneurship, a company doesn't die because you run out of money. A company dies when the founder runs out of energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Keep moving forward. Thank you so much, Bryan. It's such a great conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ruby. Thank you so much for your team as well.
Yep. And I hope this podcast has been inspiring for our listeners as well. I know a lot of entrepreneurs are listening to this, and they would definitely appreciate this conversation from you.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, những người bạn doanh nhân của Zero to X. Chương trình podcast này được làm với rất nhiều tình yêu từ bản thân mình và những người trong team của mình. Tất cả mọi người đều tình nguyện thời gian của họ. Nếu bạn thích chương trình này thì hãy mua tặng tụi mình một ly cà phê. Tụi mình đều là những con nghiện cà phê. Nếu có sự ủng hộ của bạn thì tụi mình sẽ làm ra những tập podcast mới phê hơn nữa. Hãy check out link ở trong description nha.